I'm one of the therapists here at Wellkin. And Jen, it looks like you're recording already, so that is great. And we will get right into it. So we're going to talk about conflict resolution, and conflict's hard, right? Nobody really likes conflict, but we know that no matter how much we try to avoid it, it's just kind of part of life. No matter how old you are. We also know that when we don't deal with conflicts when they come up, if it's not in a dealt with in a helpful way, then oftentimes it leads to bigger challenges later on. And so sometimes that's challenges within the relationship with the other person, or snowballs, small issues into bigger issues. But I'm hoping that through what we talk about today is this idea that while conflict doesn't feel good, that it doesn't always have to feel horrendous. That with some skills and some different ways of sort of thinking about conflict, that we'll be able to deal with little issues, little spats that come up, everything from that to really big issues. So I've sort of laid this out into 4 different steps, and the first step here is to stop. So really, this is we're going to stop and just sort of check in with yourself. What's going on? What are we feeling? And we know, when someone disagrees with us, oftentimes we feel really angry or frustrated and misunderstood, all of these really difficult feelings. And when we speak from these feelings, oftentimes we say things that are hurtful, or we raise our voices, or we say mean things. And also, when conflict gets heated, little problems tend to snowball into bigger things, right? And not only that, when we have these really big outbursts, sometimes, it often leaves us feeling bad afterwards as well, right? We feel guilty or even more frustrated. So the first step here is really just to stop, check your emotions, and try to find a calm place to speak from. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the brain science, but why this is so hard, right? And what's going on in our brains that makes it difficult for us to do this sometimes. And we know that when we become overwhelmed with anger or other difficult feelings like being really anxious or fearful, that the thinking part of our brain kind of shuts down, and it makes it really hard for us to problem solve effectively. So one way of thinking about this is flipping our lids. So I'm going to show a short video that sort of explains this a little bit better than I might be able to, and hopefully it works okay. Sorry, it seems like there's some tech issues. Here we go.
Hold your hand up like this, fold your thumb in, close your fingers down. This is a model of your brain. So the eyes, if there's a head here, they'd be looking out the front this way. This is the outside of that brain, that wrinkly part you see when you see your brain. And at the very front, right behind your forehead here, the smart part, the prefrontal cortex. It makes the decisions. Now, inside, you can't see it, but we're going to open it up like this, and we're going to see the thumb area and down here in the palm. These 2 areas work together. The limbic system, the emotions, the feelings part. When you feel scared, when you're really angry, when you're out of control and you're upset, you can't think straight. And here, the brain stem keeps your heart beating and your lungs breathing, and it makes you move your hand away from a hot stove really quickly. These 2 areas working together saves your life from a tiger. It sends out a warning signal, danger, danger, and our heart beats. We breathe fast and shallow. Our muscles tense so that we can run or we can fight and save our lives, which is very handy if a tiger is chasing you. Not so handy if you're sitting in a classroom. Now what happens? The alarm will go off, and they're false alarms. You know, false alarms in the school when the fire alarm goes off and there was no fire and we all have to leave the building anyway. Well, that's what happens here. Somebody might criticize you, or your teacher tells you to sit down and please do your work, and you get all upset. That's not a real alarm. You're not really in danger. Yet, the alarm is set and you flip your lid. You lose the smart part. And this part is now in control. What can you do to get this smart part back? Start breathing slow, in through your nose, out through your nose, way down into your belly. Let your shoulders go. Relax, relax. Relax your body and breathe. This will trick this part. Look what's happening. The smart part. You get your smart part back.
All right. So yeah, just a good video to explain kind of what's going on in our brains, right? Is that when we kind of blow our lid, that it makes it really hard for us to think through things and problem solve. And so here is a video example of this from the movie Inside Out. So I'm not sure if people have seen this before, but basically you'll see a couple different characters that represent different feelings that are inside each character's brains. And you'll kind of see what happens as anger sort of starts to take over here. All right, so yeah, I mean, a good example of when anger literally flips his lid and you know, flames are going out of his head and what happens when her and dad are both kind of letting anger take over. So Jenna, maybe this is a good time to stop recording for a minute. Thank you.
It's back on.
All right, so once you've kind of found that place of calm, then the next part is listening. And so we know, you know, when we don't feel heard, oftentimes we get more frustrated and get back to saying things that we don't mean or things that are mean, raising our voices and kind of getting back into the fight, right? So from a place of calm, listening is the next step. And this can be one of the hardest parts, but it's also the biggest. If we can listen to the other person and if we can understand where they're coming from, it's going to be a lot more easier to find a solution. So key to this is to let them talk without interrupting. And kind of keeping in mind too that, you know, the other person might not have worked through step one like you did, right? So they might still be in that place of anger and kind of struggling with that, right? But if you can stay in your place of calm, letting them know that you understand where they're coming from and how they feel, which you'll be able to do if you're listening to them, it can help things to move along. And not only that, you know, feeling heard and feeling understood often de-escalates people, right? So when we're not feeling heard, we get a lot more angry. You know, it makes things worse. But when people start to understand what our point is, helps us to kind of calm down a little bit. Same with the other person, right? So, and then again, checking in with yourself. How are you doing? Is your lid starting to flip? Do you need a second to calm down again? And if so, take it. Because it's not going to be helpful with this step is to communicate if you're not speaking from a place of calm, right? So in this part, it's your turn to talk. And so it's going to be important that we watch our words here, right? When we're speaking from a place of calm, this is a lot easier to do. So that means, you know, no put downs, no mean comments or blaming, or using words that you know are going to trigger the other person or just kind of set them off. And oftentimes this is, you know, with our family members, this is, you know, we know that there's a certain thing that we can say that is just going to push that person's button, right? And when we're angry, it's really easy to throw that out there. But you know, of course, it's not going to be helpful, right? So, you know, saying things like, well, mom would let me do this, or dad would let me do that, or whatever it might be. You know, so we're going to avoid those things. Instead, making I statements, right? So I feel a certain way because of something that's happened, right? Or I'm upset when I can't go out, or whatever it might be. But talking about yourself, and of course, using a calm voice and using kinder words. And then again, at this point is kind of checking in with yourself, seeing where you're at, and being okay with saying sorry, right? So again, when we're really angry, sometimes we say and do things that we later regret, right? So this is an opportunity for you to kind of own up to anything that you might have done that might require an apology, and being kind of honest about that. So I've got another clip here from Inside Out. So in the last clip, we kind of saw what happened when anger took over. It was sort of a similar topic about how Riley was wanting to go back home and missing her friends and stuff. But in this clip, sadness is gonna sort of take over, and she's gonna kind of speak a little bit more from the heart. Where this clip will start, Riley, anger has been sort of guiding her way, and she's on a bus getting ready to run away, and then all of a sudden sadness takes over. So we'll watch that. I'll just stop it there. But yeah, a much different experience, right? And the difference to Dad's actually listening from the beginning, and he's coming to it from a place of being worried. But when Riley actually talks about how she's feeling, rather than letting anger sort of distort everything, it's a much different experience. So that brings us to our last step, so problem solving. So once you've communicated that you understand what the other person's position is, and you've calmly communicated your position, and finally it's time to talk about some solutions. Understand, something to remember too is that understanding the other person's position also means being open to compromising. So actually not being willing to compromise can actually feel like you don't truly understand the person, right? You can't say, I really understand where you're coming from, but we're going to do everything my way anyways, right? That's not actually helpful. So keeping in mind that problem solving doesn't actually mean getting your way. In fact, problem solving is really about, talking things through in a calm and respectful way that really honors your relationship with the other person, right? So that allows you to sort of deal with whatever the issue is, to keep your relationship with the other person, and really start talking about some ideas for solutions. All right, so that is it. Jen, I don't know if you want to stop recording.